Hi, this is John from FlatCatGear. So coming up this weekend, we're going on an overnight backpacking trip up to Glacier Point. It's March, so we're going to be hiking in the snow. We recently bought some snowshoes. We've gone snow camping once before, so we're going to try a little bit further distance and just see how we like snow camping. So what I'm doing is I need to prepare meals for this trip. And I thought I'd walk you through what we do when we plan a meal and for backpacking trips and such. And particularly this one because this is a meal we have not made on the trail before. So what I recommend, first off, I like cooking. I think it's fun. I really enjoy doing it. And doing it in backpacking has just been great because we've been able to make meals that you don't normally eat. So when we go on a trip to plan out a meal, I think about where we're going and what we need to eat and what the condition is going to be like. So in this particular trip, we're trying to make it out to Glacier Point. It's 10.5 miles to make it out to Glacier Point. We're going to be on snowshoes, walking in the snow. Now we've not walked in snowshoes over that long of a distance. We've done 5-6 miles, but I suspect that it's going to take more energy to hike in the snow. I'm not worried about cold during the daytime. I think the highs are going to be up in the 50s. The lows are going to be in the low 30s, probably the low 30s. But we're going to burn up a lot of energy, probably more energy than we do normally hiking because we're going to be having these awkward steps with the snowshoes, number one, and number two, our packs are probably going to be a little bit heavier. Even though it's an overnight trip, I got to bring a bear canister and a couple of other things. So what kind of food do I want? Well, I want food that's probably going to be pretty easy to make. I probably wouldn't bake a lasagna on a trip like this because sitting there for an hour waiting for it to bake and doing all the prep work, we're probably not going to have much daylight hours because it's March. So I want something that's pretty easy to cook, but I also want it to be done in a single pot. I don't want to do multiple pots. I also want it to be really hearty. I want it to be kind of rib sticking. The idea is that probably when the sun goes down, probably about 7 o'clock on, it's going to be cool out. And even though we're going to have, winter clothes and such, you still burn a lot of energy. So what I do is I look at things that I've had at home before that I really like and what matches that criteria. And for this trip, I came up with Panang beef. It's a pretty rich, spicy, curried beef mixed with rice. I'll make it one of my wife's favorite dishes. She calls it hot and gloppy. Eat out of a pot, and she, just this big mass of flavor. So once I've decided what I'm going to do, now I've decided, that I wanted to do this a long time ago. I just haven't done it. You have to look at the ingredients that you need, and you have to scale it. So usually I look up a recipe, and this probably serves 4. So I divide it in half, and I, cut everything down in half. Second thing, you have the ingredients. So one of the only ingredient that's really exotic in this was coconut milk. So I found a place online that has this powdered coconut milk, and that's what we're going to take. And the other nice thing about it is if you start looking at things, the calorie counts can be higher for things that you make versus freeze-dried food. So this coconut milk, which will make 150 milliliters, it's about 400 calories for 2 people. That's a 200 calorie bump just for the coconut milk. Now, some of it does come from fat, but in the wintertime, I'm less worried about that. Is more than getting our calorie count up. So everything else I pretty much have. There are certain things you prepare. One of them is the ground beef. So what I do is I go out to the store and I find ground beef I found was like 94% lean. What I do is I brown that up, and then I actually boil it with a little bit of water, and then I strain it off. So I'm going to show you through what I do to get that ready. So what I've been told for drying beef is to get the leanest beef you can. So if you can see this is 96% lean. I haven't seen too many leaner than that. I can get it at my local grocery store. Pretty expensive compared to regular hamburger, but the whole idea is you're going to cook it, drain it, and dry it, and you don't want a high fat content. So I'm going to brown this, and we'll come back. So you want to make sure the hamburger is brown. You don't want it rare at all. Once it's browned, what I do is I add boiling water to it. So the hamburger is cooked. Half of it, the batch is drying. The other half is waiting for me to do the experimental batch. So one thing I want to explain to you about this and make sure you understand, when I try a meal like this, the way I look at it is you throw the first dart out there and you see how close you are to the target, and then you make your adjustments and to fine tune it to where you want it to be. So when I first throw the dart out to see where I'm at, I'm estimating the amount of beef, the amount of rice, and what I do is I record everything on the first draft. So for example, bell peppers. I have dried bell peppers. What I did was I weighed out 12 grams. I'm going to rehydrate this. Some of the dry measurements for the sugar is just a straightforward measurement, and the chili. So what I do is I log all that down first, then make the batch, and then once everything's made, then I start making fine adjustments, and I'll say add some more bell pepper, add a little bit more sugar, add a little bit more of this, reduce the amount of beef. And so I take my first target, my first shot at it here in the kitchen. I'll make all my adjustments, and in this trip I'm gonna make my adjustments and test out in the field. Then I'll make notes in the field whether I thought it needed something more or less while we were out there. So right now I'm going to rehydrate the bell peppers and get everything ready to do a trial batch. Like I said, I come up with a menu, I scale it for the 2 people, I measure out the weights. For example, this dish requires bell peppers, they say, like 5 slices. What I do is I get dehydrated bell peppers, I weigh them dry, and I reconstitute and I log everything. So now we're going to start mixing things together. We're going to make the Panang beef, and then we're going to do some of the adjustments to the seasoning after it's done. So backpacking, I rehydrated the bell peppers, soaking in water. What I would normally do is rehydrate the beef as well. And then I would do is I'd pour the water off that I rehydrated with, and I save it because when I do the coconut milk, which requires water, I reserve all that flavor and put it back in. So to start off with, this is the coconut powder, and it takes 150 milliliters of water, which is 5/8 of a cup. Again, the water is the reserve juices that I had from reconstituting the bell peppers, and camping would also be the beef. And you try this stuff at home because you want to try it before you get out in the field. Again, this is the first time I've ever used this powdered coconut. In normal meals that I have, I tend to like coconut milk in curries, and not only Thai curries but other Indian curries and such. It's got a rich flavor, and also coconut milk is something I think that's going to work out really well about backpacking. That's mixed up. I'm going to add my bell pepper, just like 2 tablespoons of sugar. I think it was a tablespoon of red curry. So now what my plan is I've got the rice here. I'm going to wash the rice. I'm going to prepare the rice and cook it like you would cook normal steamed rice. When it gets towards the end, when there's probably a little bit of water in the end, I'm going to mix in the sauce and let that thicken up and heat up that whole rice mixture, and I'll probably have to constantly stir it. So I'm going to take the ground hamburger that's in the refrigerator right now, soak it in here. I'm going to go ahead and make the rice, and then we'll see how everything cooks up. The rice is boiling. What I've got is 3/4 of a cup of rice in here, basmati rice, and 1.5 cups of water. I'm also trying out a spork. Never used a spork before. Put the stove on simmer. We'll probably come back in about 10, 15. Check my rice. And I've got a little bit of water down the bottom, so I think it's pretty much done. So now I'm going to add my sauce. going to stir it up. The sauce was cold, so I'm going to let it heat up again, and then I'm going to come back and stir it. Okay. Panning is definitely done. It's heated all back up. Now what we got to do is we got to take it inside for a taste test. Good. So this is how it came out. I had my wife, the official taster, test it. She didn't want to be on video. I was trying an experiment of doing Panang beef, and I was using soy sauce in it and not fish sauce. So I wasn't sure about bringing an extra container. But she says it needs fish sauce, so we're going to add fish sauce to it. But other than that, everything looks like it's ready to go. The one concern that she had was volume-wise. After the rice cooked up with the sauce, this is coming up on about 4 cups for 2 people. I'm less concerned about that because, again, as I said, this trip is going to be out in the snow. I think we're going to be starving when we're done. Also, the other thing we do is we bring a little Tupperware container, so if we have any leftovers, we can throw it in there, and I'll probably eat it for breakfast. So we tested the Panang last night, and I tested it again this morning. And this is where we start making adjustments to the menu. So the proportion of meat to rice we found was pretty good. The volume, again, like I said, this cooked up almost 4 cups. It's just going to be a hearty meal. I like the proportions, I like the size. Again, because we're camping in the wintertime, I'd rather actually have some extra food. What we decided to do was increase some of the spices. So we doubled the amount of brown sugar. We've gone from 2 tablespoons to 4 tablespoons. We've increased the amount of this red curry paste from 3 teaspoons to 4 teaspoons. I've decided to add a tablespoon of onion to this because, you know, what's wrong with onion? Also doubled the red pepper from 12 grams to 24 grams. So now if I weigh all this, my dry ingredients, I've got my rice, my meat, and I've packed the meat with the bell pepper because they're both going to get rehydrated at the same time. Then I've got my dry ingredients. I've got the brown sugar, I've got the coconut powder, and I've got the onion flakes that I added. Again, this is probably this is enough food for 3 portions. This comes out to about 12 ounces. Liquid-wise, we're going to add an ounce of fish sauce, and again, I said 4 teaspoons of the chili paste, so that's going to push this up probably another ounce or so. So around 13 ounces for Panang beef, 3 servings. Now by comparison, the other thing that's nice about this is I went through a quick calorie counter on this meal, and it looks like it's about 1,400 calories total. So for the 2 of us, it'll be about 700 calories. Again, that's a 1.5 servings per. And to give reference, this is, you know, sometimes we bring a backup meal. This is a Mountain House beef stew. This is 2.5 servings. A single serving only contains 210 calories. So you can see we're getting, you know, we're getting quite a bit more calories. It's a little bit more weight, but it's quite a bit more calories. Now, one of the nice things that we found about cooking is when we cook meals like this out on the trail, we bring less snacks. Now, if you're a typical backpacker and you're bringing dehydrated foods, if you weigh it out, there are many cases when the amount of snacks you bring in weight is equal to the amount of any of your freeze-dried foods that you're bringing. And what we found is when you're cooking, making meals a little heartier than that, the amount of snacks goes way down, and so your overall weight comes out to be just about the same. So again, stay tuned for part 2. We'll be cooking this meal out on the trail and making adjustments as we go. Come visit us at www.FlatCatGear.com.